Okay, we've got a cross-text connection or paired passage question with text 1, text 2. First thing we want to do is read the question itself to get the condition we need to follow. How would Maddox, text 2, respond to the conclusion of Sharif, text 1, reached after her further research? So how would Maddox respond to the conclusion of Sharif that she reached after further research? So remember, it was after her further research. So she might have had multiple conclusions, but one was after further research. Just need to be a little careful of that. Text 1. In a study of the benefits of having free time, Sharif found that the reported sense of life satisfaction tended to plateau when participants had 2 hours of free time per day. So it's like, oh, we've got benefits, free time, love it. But at some point, maybe people just get bored, right? They want something to do. So at like 2 hours, they're like, no more benefits, right? Okay, I'm used to free time, basically. Okay. And actually began to fall when they had 5 hours of free time. So that's interesting. Now, 5 hours, they go down. So this is 2 hours, this is 5 hours, and our vertical axis would be the benefits we feel, right? So after further research, of course, this is all per day. Sharif concluded, so this is after the research, this is the conclusion we care about, that this dip in life satisfaction mainly occurred when individuals spent all their free time unproductively, such as watching TV or playing games. Okay, so the dip occurs, benefit dip, only for couch potatoes, right? Only if you're watching TV or you're not doing anything basically productive. Okay? So let's see what text 2 would say about that. Psychologist Maddox cautions against suggesting an ideal amount of free time. Okay, not any ideal amount. The human desire for both free time and productivity is universal. But Maddox asserts that individuals have unique needs for life satisfaction. Furthermore, added a point, he points out that there is no objective definition for what constitutes productivity. So it's a subjective idea. Reading a book might be considered a productive activity by some, but idleness by others. Okay? So free time is free time, right? You have it free. That's not in question, I guess, from the first second. But the second text says that everybody's a little different, and how you define productive time varies. So the statement text 1 says they were unproductive. That was the key. But what is productive versus unproductive? So that's what the second one. So the second author would question how the first author defined unproductive, right? And therefore would question maybe the conclusion itself. So, okay. So did text 2 respond by acknowledging that free time is more likely to enhance life satisfaction when it is spent productively than when? No. The paragraph 2 or text 2 said, we don't know what productive versus unproductive is. So that's wrong. By challenging the reasoning in text 1, as it has not been proved that productivity, so proved, very extreme language, too extreme, right? That productivity commonly contributes to individuals' life has not been proved that productivity contributes. No, that has nothing to do with it. Okay. C, by warning against making an overly broad assumption, text 2 might do that, possibly, as there is no clear consensus on distinguishing between productive and unproductive. This is pretty good, right? Like, you can't necessarily make a conclusion yet because you don't really know what productive and unproductive is. This looks pretty good. Let's just check D. By claiming that the specific activities named in text 1 are actually examples of productive. No, okay. The author 2 questioned what is and is not productive, but the author of text 2 did not say watching TV or playing games is productive, right? So C is the right answer. D is not correct because of that. Okay, we've got a cross-text comparison or connection question here. Both authors would most likely agree. So both authors most likely agree with what? What statement do they agree with? So let's see where these authors agree. The live music festival business is growing in event size and genre variety. With so many consumer options, organizers are finding ways to cement festival attendance as a special experience worth sharing. This phenomenon is linked to the growing experiential economy, where many find it gratifying to purchase live experiences. To ensure a profitable event, venues need to consider the overall consumer experience, not just the band lineup. Okay, so what do we know here? Music festival is growing. Live events is the key thing, right? That's what seems to be booming. People want this experiential event. It's not just about the band, it's about the whole experience. Okay, text 2. Music festival appearances are becoming a more important part of musicians' careers. One factor in this shift is the rising use of streaming services that allow access to huge number of songs for a monthly fee, subsequently reducing sales of full-length albums. With this shift in consumer behavior, musicians are increasingly dependent on revenue from live performances. Okay, so what's this saying? This is kind of a different take on a related but not quite the same thing, right? This is saying music festivals are becoming more important. This is the idea that's consistent with both of them, okay? And they have a whole different explanation. Here they're saying online sales take away from album sales, therefore they have to rely on live event revenue, okay? That's not really important, but the key idea is that both believe the festival live experience is more important for musicians and consumers and growing. So, what do they agree with? Let's check. Consumers are more interested in paying subscription fees to... No, that's not it. There's no comparison. That's a false comparison. They'd rather pay fees. I'd rather pay Netflix than, go to a concert. No way, right? That's just not it. That's not even the idea here. B, consumers' growing interest in purchasing experiences is mostly confined. No, they do talk about the music business here. They never say it's confined to the music business, right? Mostly confined, too extreme. C, changing consumers' behaviors are leading to changes in music-related businesses. Okay, that's true, right? Above, the behaviors are people want more live experiences. Below, consumers want, free streaming music, so they don't buy albums, and that is changing the music-related business. We do talk about the business here, and we do talk about careers and business here. I think C is going to be our answer. I'm going to circle it. I'm so sure it's the answer, and we'll just check D. D, the rising consumer demand for live music festivals also generates higher demand for music streaming. No, there's no. That wasn't the idea at all. That's not what the text says. And by the way, it's not just about consumer demand. It was also about the musicians and their careers. So that's not right. C is the answer. Okay, we've got a cross-text comparison or connections. We've got... based on the text, how would the author of text 2 most likely respond to the claim about Appiah's level of technical expertise made by Bremer in text 1? Okay, so we also want to read the question because every condition is a little bit different. So we want to understand that condition. Now we can go. So we want to know what text 2 would say about the claim about Appiah's level of technical expertise. Not what it actually is, but what the claim is made by Bremer. So let's see the claim. I want to find a claim in text 1, and I want to see what the response to that would be in text 2. So stage lighting theorist Adolphe Appiah was perhaps the first to argue that light must be considered alongside all the various elements of a stage to create a single unified performance. Researcher Kelly Bremer, however, has noticed that Appiah lacked technical expertise in the use of light in the theater. As a result of Appiah's inexperience, Bremer argues Appia's theory of light called for lighting practices that weren't possible until after the advent of electricity in 1881. So what's the claim about Appia's level of expertise made by Bremer? Well, Bremer argues that, in contrast, Appia lacked technical expertise in the use of light in the theater. That's the claim. Okay? And now we want to know what text 2 would say about that. So, Adolphe Appia was not an amateur in the practice of lighting. So, disagrees right away. Text 2 is disagreeing that saying Appia did have expertise. Instead, it is precisely his exposure to lighting techniques at the time that contributed to his theory on the importance of light. When working as an apprentice for a lighting specialist in his youth, Appia observed the use of a portable lighting device that could be operated by hand. This experience developed his understanding of what was possible in the coordination of elements on the stage. Okay, so text 2 would say, you're wrong, text 1. He had experience. So A, many lighting technicians dismissed Appia's ideas about lighting on... No, that's not what he's responding to, right? He's not saying what many lighting technicians would or would not say, text 2. Appia likely gained a level of technical expertise during his time as an apprentice. So, is that it? Is that how they respond? I mean, he kind of does say that, text 2. But is that how we would respond to the claim that Appia lacked? There's no sense of disagreement there. So I don't think that's it, but let's keep going. It's not wrong per se. It just isn't really answering the question. C, theater practitioners who worked with Appia greatly admired his work. Why would text 2 say anything about that? That's not in text 2's text at all. That's kind of irrelevant, right? It's not something he would rely on to prove Appia was not an amateur. He used his own evidence. He didn't need to rely on theater practitioners. D, Appia was unfamiliar with the use of music and sound in theater. Would text 2 say Appia was unfamiliar? No. He said Appia is not an amateur, right? He used different devices in elements on stage. So I think B is going to be right. Appia likely gained a level of technical expertise during his lifetime as an apprentice. I mean, that is literally what text 2 says. He's not an amateur. His exposure to lighting techniques at the time contributed to his theory of the importance, and he got all this from working as an apprentice. So this is kind of more of a repetition of text 2. I would have expected to say something that, hey, Bremner was wrong, but that's not really here. Yet this is true. This is what text 2 says and thinks, so B has to be the right answer, I think. Okay, we've got another cross-text connection, text 1, text 2. Let's read the question, get the condition right first. How would Artemyeva, not sure which person that is, all right, likely respond to Siraj's hypothesis as presented in text 1? So text 1, I guess, is Siraj. We're going to have some hypothesis. And we want to know how text 2 would respond to this hypothesis. Okay? So let's take a look. In 2021, a team led by Emir Siraj hypothesized that Chicxulub impactor, the object that struck the Yucatan Peninsula 66 million years ago, precipitating the mass extinction of the dinosaurs, was likely a member of the class of long-period comets. As evidence, Siraj cited the carbonaceous chondritic composition of samples in the Chicxulub impact crater, as well as of samples obtained from long-period comet Wild 2. So his idea is that its hypothesis is a long-period comet. So what is that exactly? Well, I would presume that to be, it's not a comet that was close by and kept going round and round many times. It was a comet that went way far away and then came back after a long, long time, right? And why did he think this? He took samples of another long period comet, right? and compared those somewhat to the samples from Chicxulub. And I suppose they were somewhat similar, right? Okay. So he had some evidence for it. Okay, so now we want to know what the text 2 author would say about that. Although long period comets contain carbonaceous chondrites, asteroids are similarly rich in these materials. So, okay, right away, we have another option, right, that the first author did not mention or pick up. Could be an asteroid, right? Furthermore, some asteroids are rich in iridium, as such and such Artemisieva, there's the person, points out, whereas long period comets are not. So we do have a difference we can test, that you're rich in iridium. Given the prevalence of iridium at the crater, more broadly in geological layers deposited worldwide following the impact, Artemisieva argues that an asteroid is a more plausible candidate. So an asteroid is a better hypothesis that fits the data better than a long period comet. All right. I think we got that. So let's see. By insisting, I don't think anyone's insisting here. That's too extreme. Okay. That it overestimates how representative Wild 2 is of long period comets as a class. No. And by the way, that wasn't even the argument. It wasn't, your comparison of Wild 2 to other long period comets. That's a possible flaw in text 1's argument. That's not the argument text 2 even made. That's wrong. B, by arguing that it does not account for the amount of iridium found in geological layers dating to the Chicxulub impact. Yeah, that he would argue that text 1 does not do anything about accounting for the amount of iridium. That was the key argument that said, it's an asteroid, not a comet. But that's kind of a little weird. I'm just going to hold on to that and check the others. By praising it for text 2 is praising text 1? No, would not praise it. First of all, in science, why would you praise anything? That's too emotional. And number 2 is that's positive, and text 2 disagreed with text 1. So this is definitely not correct. D, by concurring. Concurring is agreeing that carbonaceous chondrites are prevalent in soil samples. Okay, they do agree, I guess, on that point. From sites distant, but that's not it. That's not the idea at all, even if it's true. Let's go back. What's the original question? How would Artemisia respond to Siraj's hypothesis? Not just particular claims of evidence and data, but the hypothesis that long period comets caused the dinosaurs' extinction, basically. It would be an argument or disagreement by arguing that it does not account for the amount of iridium in geological layers. So it says the hypothesis doesn't account for this other element, and that other element is in asteroids, right? I'd like to see more reference to asteroids here versus comets, but that's not in here. But it's still correct. B is going to be the correct answer.